Internal auditors must help rebuild South Africa as the country works to recover from a number of scandals. The Institute of Internal Auditors South Africa is among a number of organizations making their expectations clear following President Cyril Ramaphosa's inauguration. For more on this, we're joined in studio by CEO Claudelle Von Eck. Claudelle, very good morning to you. Thank you for coming in. Let's begin then with your impressions now that we've got a new president, or a newish president, sworn in yesterday. Are you hopeful?
Yes, I think all South Africans are hopeful. The right things are being said, but of course the proof is in the pudding. I think that President Cyril Ramaphosa has a huge task ahead of him, but it is also important that all of us in South Africa understand that it is going to take a collective effort. We can't put all the hope in him. We've got to put hope in South Africans that in our respective spaces that we will do what we need to do. So from an internal audit perspective, internal audit's mandate is that it is a risk-based discipline. It can help tremendously in where we want to see the country going.
And you've just released details of a survey or a study that you've done which found 40% of auditors working in local municipalities fear for their lives when reporting wrongdoing. We know that the safety of whistleblowers has been a big issue as far as unearthing or getting out word on the various instances of corruption and other wrongdoing in all levels of government. How are you going to address this? Have you taken this up with those in charge?
Yes, I think, yes, and the message is going out, and we are talking to the various role players. It is important that we understand that this is a leadership issue, and this would be one of our messages to President Ramaphosa, is that you need to look at what happens in this space where we're talking about whistleblowers, and internal auditors are inevitably those who cannot hide behind just putting in a phone call and say this is what's happening. It comes through in their report, so everybody knows who's raised the findings. So we do need to do a lot more when it comes to protecting those who would bring to the fore the wrongdoing. And we definitely need to look at the leaders. So the survey, for example, has shown very clearly that the biggest area of concern is when there are findings around executive management, the leadership in the organization, and then no action being taken, or internal auditors are not protected when there is intimidation, when they've raised the findings.
And why aren't leaders, the executive, why aren't they protecting internal auditors when issues are highlighted? Because the 40% stat relates to fear among whistleblowers at municipal level, but the picture is much the same at national government as well as at state-owned enterprises.
Look, and before I answer the question, I must also say that we are seeing similar trends in the private sector, although not as big as in the public sector, but we should be concerned about the fact that we're seeing it in the private sector as well. I think there are a couple of reasons. Sometimes it is because the leadership themselves are the problem. And then they would, of course, not want to protect internal auditors against themselves. But sometimes it is also a situation where we have leaders who don't really know how to deal with it. Sometimes you've got people in leadership positions who have been promoted beyond their level of competence. But often it is not the right questions being asked, or the leadership not being trained on how to deal with it when the findings are raised or when a whistleblower comes to them. And inadvertently, they may very well then put the person who is the whistleblower in a very, very difficult position.
Let's speak for a moment then about how your members are able, or at least try to balance the need, the ethical requirement for them to highlight wrongdoing with what is also a bread and butter issue, because their livelihood is linked to how these reports are received and how the various people in charge act on the findings. How do they navigate that space?
And it is, of course, a difficult thing. And as our South Africans, I think we need to be aware of the fact that when a person is in that position, when you've got to choose between your livelihood and doing the right thing, or worse, protecting your own life or that of your family. What we've done is we're working in collaboration with other professional bodies, and we've created the Anti-Intimidation Ethical Practices Forum, which is essentially an umbrella body where the whistle can be blown safely, to provide an avenue for them that if once they've exhausted the processes within the organization and they find themselves in that position where the whistle needs to be blown because there are going to be consequences if we don't stop what we see in front of us, the AEPF is one of the vehicles that we've created for them.
Claudelle Von Eck, thank you so much.